The jungle lay heavy with silence, a silence that was not peaceful but tense, as though the very trees held their breath in anticipation of something about to unfold. And in that silence moved a man who had built his life on walking between danger and survival, Shikari Shambhu, clad in nothing more than a faded shirt, a battered hat, and an easy smile that hid the cunning of 1,000 hunts, stepping lightly on the damp earth as if the forest itself welcomed his presence. For every villager in the nearby settlement knew that when danger struck, when beasts came roaring out of the wilderness, or when men themselves became more dangerous than the wild animals they feared, it was Shambhu who would rise, not because he sought fame, not because he wished to be celebrated, but because within him there was a fire, a code of survival, and a strange sense of justice that no one could ever quite put into words, and that was the man the village now needed again, though they did not yet know it. For whispers were growing louder that something darker than any tiger or rogue elephant had stepped into their world, smugglers and poachers who had turned the forest into a marketplace, taking tusks, skin, and rare herbs, while sowing fear among the people who lived in its shadow. And as the villagers sat huddled one evening under the dim glow of lanterns, debating what to do, arguing whether to approach the police or simply abandon their homes, one old man cleared his throat, the sound cutting through the noise like a blade, and said with quiet certainty, "There is only one man who can help us, Shambhu." The name fell into the circle like a stone into water, rippling across every face, some with relief, others with doubt, for though they all admired the hunter's courage, they also remembered his peculiar nature, his tendency to slip away when praised, his refusal to call himself a hero, and his strange habit of smiling even when staring down danger, as if he knew a joke that no one else could understand. And yet, when dawn broke, it was decided that a delegation would go to his hut on the edge of the forest, where smoke curled lazily from a chimney and the scent of tea leaves mixed with the smell of earth, and there they found him sitting cross-legged, fishing rod propped lazily against the wall, as though the problems of the world were none of his concern. And when they poured out their worries, speaking of missing cattle, of men with guns who marched through the night, of children too afraid to step out after dusk, Shambhu only listened, his eyes half closed, nodding occasionally, until they finished and looked at him expectantly, and then he leaned back, stretched, and said with a smile, "So, you want me to chase away not a tiger, not a leopard, but men. Men with bullets. That's a different kind of hunt, my friends." But before they could reply, before anyone could plead with him further, Shambhu stood, dusted off his shirt, adjusted his hat, and in a voice that was suddenly sharper than a blade, said, "All right, tell me where they camp, and leave the rest to me." And with that, the legend began again, though no one in that moment realized it, not the villagers who clutched each other with a mixture of hope and fear, not the smugglers who laughed in the dark convinced that the jungle now belonged to them, and not even Shambhu himself, who though smiling, could feel something stirring inside him, an old hunger for the chase, an old thrill for the hunt, something that reminded him why he had earned his name, why even the fiercest beasts had learned to fear the quiet man in the hat, for though he looked ordinary, when the moment came, when danger finally stood before him, he was not ordinary at all, he was a storm waiting to break. So that night, as the moon slipped behind clouds and the forest sank into deeper shadows, Shambhu set out, his footsteps soundless, his eyes scanning every leaf, every broken twig, until at last he saw the faint flicker of fire ahead, and crouching low, he peered through the undergrowth at the camp of the smugglers, rough men with rifles slung across their shoulders, laughter spilling from cracked lips as they drank and boasted, their piles of stolen tusks and skins gleaming like trophies beside them. And for a long moment Shambhu simply watched, calculating, reading their movements the way another man might read words on a page, until at last he whispered to himself, "Not beasts, but still animals," and with that, he reached for the knife strapped to his leg, his movements calm, his heart steady, for the hunt had begun, and though the men around the fire did not yet know it, their night of laughter was about to end in terror.